So it's been a while since the last pocket watch camera video. You'll remember that time I just made the shutter component of the camera. So that's just the part that either lets light in or doesn't. So today I'll be finishing the camera, and that means making the lens component and the part of the camera that holds the film flat and in place. Then I'll be taking the camera out and seeing if I can get some photos out of it. So we'll start off by making the lens, and if you remember the plan from last time, the pinhole lens will be situated in the centre of the face of the watch. And what I'm doing now is just gluing in 6 little pieces of cut up rubber washer just to make a platform for the face to sit on, so that'll make sure it's at the right height, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. And there you go, placing the face onto the platform, it sits nicely just above the shutter mechanism. And then putting the front part on, it all looks good. Now, one of the reasons I'm bothering to make a camera inside a real pocket watch is just so that it looks as normal as possible from the outside. So I'm just gluing the hands onto the face, so it just looks like a normal watch when it's finished. So first the hour hand. Then the minute hand. And the second hand in the same way. Okay, so it should now look pretty much just like an ordinary watch when it's all assembled. And one last thing, there needs to be no light whatsoever getting into the camera except through the lens. So I'll just now cover up the little hole for the second hand with a little piece of black electrical tape. So now we're finally ready to make the actual pinhole lens component of the pinhole camera. And all that involves is making the smallest possible hole you can in some kind of opaque material. Now you can use a few different materials. Tin foil is quite often used. What I'm using here is just a little piece of normal aluminium drinks can. And what you do is just by using a pin, gently twist it between your fingers and press lightly and just begin to drill a tiny, tiny hole. And I'll just do the same thing a few times, and then later I can pick a hole that looks nice and small. Right, so I've marked my chosen hole with a black pen. Hopefully you can just see the little black spot below it there. And I can carefully cut it out with scissors. And again, I'm using a small piece of black electrical tape, but this time with a hole in the middle, and that's just made with a regular hole punch. And making sure the pinhole lines up perfectly with the hole in the center of the face, I can now just stick the pinhole down on the back side of the face. And that's the lens finished, and holding it up to the light you can see the pinhole is nice and central. And hopefully we'll be able to get some sort of image out of it. And now putting the lens and shutter together and holding them up to the light, you can see how it's all supposed to work. And turning it over, you can see just how discreet the little hole is from the outside. Right, so there's now just one part left to make, and that's the part of the camera that holds a little piece of film flat so that it can be exposed by the shutter and make a photo. Now it's going to be quite a simple construction, again made out of the aluminium can, and it'll pretty much just be a base and then a sort of clip on either side. So this will be the base piece, and now the pieces for the clips. So that's all the pieces cut out, and I'll just start by covering the clip pieces with a bit of masking tape, which should stop them from scratching the film. And I can now glue all the parts together. and then glue everything to the inside of the watch back. And now that's all the parts of the camera finished. Now before we can use the camera to take pictures, we do need some small pieces of film which are the right size. Okay, so in total darkness, obviously, I'm just going to pull out and cut off a small section of normal 35mm film, and then I'll feed the film into this little template I made, and it's just a folded bit of drinks can. And just by feeling the edge of the template with the scissors, I can cut exactly the size I need. And then I'll just add a little fold to the piece of film, and that's for two reasons. So one, it's very important I know which way up the film goes when I'm loading it into the camera, so it's very important that the matte side is facing up. And two, I can just use the little tab as a nice little handle, which makes it easier to load and unload the film. And I can basically just cut as many little pieces as I need, and then I store the little pieces in a second canister for when I need to use them. Okay, so now we have finally everything we need to take some pictures with the camera. So I'll start by putting film in the camera, so again in complete darkness. I'll just take out one of the little pieces we just cut and carefully slide it into the film holder. And as you can see, the film holder works really nicely and just keeps the film nice and flat. And now is the fun part where I can actually assemble the camera. So now I'll just press the shutter part into the film back. It is quite a tight fit, so you have to press quite hard. And now I can just put my spare pieces of film back in the canister and then assemble the rest of the camera in normal light. I then put the face onto the shutter. Then the glass goes in the bezel, and then I can press the bezel onto the body of the watch. And we're done. The camera is now loaded with film, and we're ready to take a photo. Okay, so I've taken a photo and it's now time to develop the film in the camera. But before I go into complete darkness, I'm just going to take off the back slightly so it's a bit easier when I can't see what I'm doing. And now in total darkness, I'll use the knife to remove the back completely. And I'll get my developing tank out. Now I use a developing tank for processing film, and the point of it is that it's completely light proof, but you can pour chemicals in and out of it. So I'll just slide my film out of the film back, and I'll just attach my little piece of film to the wire that I've attached to the spool there. I put the spool back in the tank, and I can now develop the film just in the normal way. Okay, so I've now unloaded and processed some real bits of film, and this is the result. So you can see what you get is these very bizarre looking negatives with these tiny little circular images, only about 5 or 7 millimeters across. And they're so small I don't expect the quality of the photos to be too good, but I'll scan them now and we shall see. Okay, now that's the best photo I was able to take with the camera after about 20 attempts. And if you can't tell what it is, I'll show you the image side by side with one taken on my phone. And there you are, it's a view of my street. Now you might be disappointed by the quality of the photo, but I think it's really not too bad considering the size of the negative. Remember, it was only about 5mm across. Now what determines the negative size is the focal length of the camera, and that means the distance between the lens and the film. And unfortunately for me, pocket watches are generally very thin, so I think the focal length of my camera was probably less than 4 or 5mm. I do have one other reasonable photo, by the way. There's the scan. And there it is next to a phone photo. The two photos were taken at different times of year, so the tree looks a bit different, but you get the idea. So there are at least a couple of things that will improve the pictures I take with this camera. So the first thing, which is something I can practice, is the actual picture taking. So that's holding the camera steady and holding the shutter open long enough to get the right exposure. And the second thing is something I would implement next time I build a pinhole camera, which is just to make sure the vessel that I use for the camera is thick enough or large enough to allow for a reasonable focal length. But yeah, I've definitely learned a lot with this project, and I'm keen to make more pinhole camera related content. Okay, thanks for watching. Let me know if there's anything in particular you think I should use this camera to take a picture of, and see you next time.